Chris MacNeil. Welcome to the Tech 45 podcast. If you don't mind introducing yourself very briefly, so Metzger and whoever else is, my 12 followers on Spotify can get to know you better.
My name's Chris MacNeil. I currently work right now as a pipe welder. I was in the Army with you for our deployment to Afghanistan. I spent 4 years, then I got out. I currently live in Sandown, New Hampshire, originally from Haverhill, Massachusetts. I live like 20 minutes from where I grew up, so.
Me too. Yeah,
Yep.
I recently moved back home to Northern Virginia, and I can tell you, for the family support, it's been incredible. I wish I'd kind of done that sooner rather than later. I took a kind of a roundabout journey. I went from Fort Bliss. I got out of the Army off active duty, I think shortly after you did. I got out in like 2015.
I got out in 2014, September.
Okay.
September, I think November was technically my ETS date, but I took terminal leave in September.
Okay. I took terminal leave starting in April
Okay.
2015.
Really?
Like
I thought you stayed in longer for some reason.
I stayed in the reserves on and off, so I did 2 company commands in the reserves. I was like not a very good company commander as a part-time guy, but I did my best, But,
I don't believe that.
It was fun. I had a good time. I met a lot of good people, but
Right.
honestly, I wanted to talk to you because like you're the person that like kept me sane during that deployment to Afghanistan. like I was telling my wife.
I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah. Oh, but I was not the only one that felt that way.
Doing Biggie Smalls Afghanistan rap spoofs.
Yeah. You spliced the wire and somehow you're able to get
The
like an
iPod.
iPod.
Yep.
Yeah, an iPod into the internal
Yeah.
communications. I wish we could broadcast it on the battalion net. That would have been even more fun.
Yeah, they would have loved. They would have been pissed about the iPod just by itself.
Coming to you live from Top 10 Collect. We got Chris MacNeil and DJ Ryan.
Yep. Oh man, that's funny.
Yeah, you kept me sane on all those.
I appreciate it. You did. Yeah, you have to.
Yeah.
Some of the stuff you gotta keep definitely develop a weird sense of humor too. That's true.
No
You
doubt
gotta do something to pass the time.
How old were you when you discovered you had this knack for just like making people like burst out laughing, like the kind of like milk shooting through the nose, like that kind of laughter?
I don't know. I guess I've always enjoyed trying to make people laugh. I've always been doing impressions since I was a kid. I guess it's just it's a gift and a curse, I suppose. I used to get phone calls in high school from my buddies that wanted me to do my Hank Hill impression for them and stuff. It just I don't know how I discovered this talent, but I guess I just fell into it. I always enjoyed making people laugh though.
Hank Hill, that's the what's the name of the show?
King of the Hill.
King of the Hill. Yeah. So
Yeah.
like, damn it, Bobby.
God dang it, Bobby.
Oh, that's pretty good. That's pretty good.
Bull.
Boomhauer. That was a weird show. I remember that show was kind of like either before or after The Simpsons. It was like I think it was on Fox.
Yeah, it was Mike Judge.
Mike Judge.
It was the same guy who did Beavis and Butthead did King of the Hill.
Dude, I heard they're bringing Beavis and Butthead back.
They are. I think they have. I haven't seen any of the new episodes. I think it's got like a modern twist on it where it's, some of the woke stuff and they incorporate that into it, which is funny. I've been meaning to watch it. I haven't.
Oh yeah, same here. It's on my list. My brother and I used to watch Beavis and Butthead, and I'll never forget we saw Beavis and Butthead Do America.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, that's a good one.
That was so good.
Yeah.
So good. I love when they're in the desert and they eat that cactus and just start tripping. And like the rock guitarist, I'll have to pull a picture of it. But the rock guitarist
White Zombie playing. Yeah, that was.
Oh, is that what it was?
I think that was. Yeah, I think it was one of Rob Zombie's bands was the song or something.
Yeah, dude. I need to get a poster of that on my wall. Yeah. Here's a picture of it. Let me pull up a picture of it here. It's so funny, dude. We were probably way too young to be watching that.
Maybe, yeah. I mean, I think it was a little bit before my time. It was back when, yeah. There you go, Jamie. Pull that up.
Do you see that? Beavis and Butthead tripping in the desert. I'm just gonna watch it. I don't care if I get a copyright violation. Dude, this is so good.
Oh yeah.
It's like a music video.
Yeah, I think yeah.
Oh my. Okay, I gotta turn this off. I'll watch that later. Yeah. But that and my favorite Beavis and Butthead episode was when they're working with the fast food joint, and they're putting like night crawlers in the frying pan,
Yep.
in the deep fryer, and they're just like throwing cheeseburgers at the fan, like the ceiling fan, and they just made a huge mess.
Yeah.
It's like,
That was a good one. I think I remember that one.
oh man, I feel bad for people that work like late night shifts on fast food restaurants. I guess nowadays they don't really let people in the stores. I think it's all drive through now. But
Yeah,
I
I think a
remember,
lot of it
yeah.
is. I don't think you can just walk in.
No, I don't think so either. The McDonald's in my college town, over at State College, Pennsylvania. I remember going in there at like 1 or 2 a.m. and the employees were just so stressed out. Like they were just a bunch of like rowdy college kids ordering
Oh,
cheeseburgers.
I guess I'd be stressed out too.
Yeah, and then like you hear this flush, and like the bathrooms are like the toilets are really loud, and then I look over and I see in the men's room there's just like a puddle of water like going underneath the door into the restaurant. I was like, and the guy just like put his like tray down, and just like when the employees was like, ah, and he walked over there with a mop. I was like, that's not right. I hate when people like just destroy restaurants like that. It's so mean.
Yeah, that's I don't know. Food service, it's kind of I never liked doing it. I did it briefly when I was in high school. I always hated it. Having to
Really.
clean up. Yeah, having to clean up after people, and it's not ideal, I guess. Not for me.
Yeah, people just aren't. I guess it doesn't really take that many people to be inconsiderate to like ruin it for everybody.
No, not at all. Yeah, some people just don't have any, I guess, consideration for. I don't mess with people that handle my food. You know what I mean? I hate
No,
even going out to dinner with certain family members, and they tend to critique the waiter, and I'm just like, I hope you like spit in your potatoes. It's just, ugh, I can't do it. I don't mess with people that handle my food. You know?
oh, dude, I was out to dinner with one of my previous company commanders on I think Thursday night. I was actually
Mhm.
down at Fort Columbus, Georgia. I was down in Columbus,
Oh
Georgia.
wow.
Yeah. It was kind of a throwback, and we said the same thing. He said pretty much the same thing you did, and I was like, dude, with people like bringing you like plates of food and cleaning up after you, like in any other time period in history, like you would be like royalty for that to happen.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like if you were to go and like have someone that wasn't your family member like prepare you food and bring it out to you, like, and you should be very grateful for that. That like we're able to do that in
Right.
the modern era. Like you can go to a freaking restaurant and they bring you like appetizers and meals and desserts and drinks. Like that's a privilege in my
Oh yeah, I
yeah.
agree. And I've heard the service in Europe is way different. I heard it's way slower than it is over here.
It
That's
is.
why a lot of Americans, I guess, go. I think the only time I've been to Europe is when we went overseas and we flew through Germany. So I can't really speak to what it's like. But from what I've family members I have that have traveled to Europe say that the service is significantly slower. And Americans tend to not, they get pissed because it's not like here where you get your food right away. It takes longer. They don't tip over there either. So,
Yeah,
but
tips included in the meal, which is
yeah,
like so there's not really an incentive for them to move faster, which is part of
right.
it.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense. I still don't. I'm never rude to waiters and waitresses. I don't. Yeah. I just a kind of a personal rule of mine. I don't mess with people that handle my food.
No, I'm
Yeah,
with you, dude. I
you know.
100%, man. I've never seen you be rude to anybody.
Oh, I try not to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, it takes. I guess I got a pretty long fuse. I try to treat everybody nicely. I don't like getting treated like shit, so I try to extend the same courtesy, I suppose.
Yeah, you've got a lot of empathy. I think that's why you're so good at impressions. Is like I feel like you really listen to people, like you not just like what they're saying, but you listen to like the tone
Oh
and
yeah.
the pausing at the right cadence. Like
Oh, it's
everything
gotten me.
about your
It's
impression.
gotten me in some trouble over the years. Well, people that get upset when I impersonate them, I always say imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. So
Okay, stop. That's too fun.
I had to impersonate certain people in front of the whole company a couple times because I was called to do so. Luckily, everybody was cool about it. It's just a
No.
habit, and then everybody wants me to impersonate them when they have a generic sounding voice, and I'm like, you don't have anything in your voice that I can impersonate. You got to have something that I could pick up on.
Ah, you're so good at that.
I,
Yeah.
I like I said, I don't know how I stumbled into it. I guess
Yeah,
everybody
people make a
says I
living
should.
doing that.
I should. Yeah, everybody. My wife wants me to be a comedian. I always think about it. I'd have to go do like an open mic night or something, but I think I could come up with something. I think I could come up with some material.
Oh, I would watch your comedy. I would
Yeah,
watch
I think
anything
I
you
think
did.
I could. I
Yeah.
think I could come up with it.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I mean, there's some people out there that I feel like people in general just take themselves way too seriously.
Yeah,
You know, like we're not
you
that
gotta laugh,
important as individuals. Yeah, you gotta laugh, man. Like no one
right?
like. It's way easier to be around someone that like is jovial and lighthearted like you than someone who's just like uptight and can't take a joke. Uh, at least in the army, if you were being made fun of, it could be perceived as a positive thing. I think.
Yeah,
I don't know.
yeah. Well, hey, I mean, I took my lumps too. I got made fun of, but I mean, it is. I just I do make fun of people, but I don't. Like I say, when I impersonate people, I don't do it to be mean or malicious. It's just a if someone's got a voice, I just got to pick up on it.
You have to.
it's just a thing. It just calls to me.
Do you still do it today?
Yeah, yeah, yep. I still do. I'm pretty known for my movie quotes at work. I think I've seen more movies than most people, and I just tend to be able to recite movie quotes, and I'm pretty well known for that.
Oh, it's so funny. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think you and I shared the same affinity for, I think Tarantino films, if I'm not
Oh yeah, I
mistaken.
love
Okay,
Tarantino. I like the older ones. I think some of the new ones aren't as good, but I've still seen them all.
what's
The
your
old one.
favorite one?
Oh, favorite one ever?
Hard choice.
Oh, I'd have to say Reservoir Dogs.
Good movie. Good
I
choice.
would say Reservoir Dogs, and then Pulp Fiction's probably a close second.
Ah,
And then I
Pulp
mean,
Fiction's so
really, there's
good.
so many other good ones too, but I think Reservoir is probably my favorite.
Yeah, it's hard. It's too hard to choose. So I've heard, because Tarantino's done like a couple of interviews publicly in the last 3 years. He said he's
Yeah,
coming
he's
out with
writing
one
his
more
last
movie.
movie. Yep, and I
That's
think
it.
it's called The Movie Critic or something like. I think it's about a movie critic. So I think that's his last one. I thought it's something like that. It's something to do with a critic or a. I think it's coming out in like 2 years, from what I
Okay,
seen. What was his last one? Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I
I think
think that
so.
was it. That was all right.
Yeah,
That
it was
was
all
it
right.
was it wasn't one of my favorites.
Yeah, I could see it. I mean, I think it got good reviews. I could see how it appeals to certain people, but it wasn't my kind of Tarantino film.
No, I mean, I guess killing the Manson family with a flamethrower was like interesting to see, but
It's
I don't.
crazy,
Yeah,
dude.
kind of an interesting spoof on like that night that all that crap went down in the. I think was it the '60s where they killed Sharon Tate. It was kind of funny how if that actually happened, that would have been pretty wild. But I mean, it's a decent watch. But again, not one of my favorite Tarantino movies.
No,
But
totally.
the I saw one recently that I had never seen. Four Rooms. Did you ever see that one?
No,
That's a Tarantino movie.
no.
It's pretty funny. It's kind of it's about like a guy who's a bellhop at a hotel, and it's like all these different stories happen at the hotel. I had never even heard of it. One of the guys I was working with told me about it, and then I went home and watched it.
Huh.
Tim
Is
Roth is
this?
in it. I
Let me
think
pull it up real quick.
Bruce
See if I
Willis.
can.
It's interesting. It's I
Is
thought it was good.
is it like mid '90s? Is this
I
it?
think it
Four
was
rooms.
mid '90s. Yep, that's it.
Okay.
Yep.
I'm seeing who's in it.
Yeah,
Madonna's
Tim.
in it.
Yeah, she is. Yep, Tim Roth
Oh,
is the bellhop.
love Madonna. Is that? Wait, who else is it? That's not Antonio Banderas, is it?
I
Oh, it
think it
is.
is. It is.
Oh,
Yeah,
no
he's in it.
way.
Yep, he's
Oh,
in it.
cool. Dude, he's a pretty good actor, man.
Yep.
Some of his older movies are really good.
Yeah.
He's phenomenal. Yeah, he's incredible. So why did you join the army in the first place? One thing me and Trevino were talking about was like you just have this mix of people from all different backgrounds. I mean, some of the people in our company were like straight up like homeless on the streets of New York before they came in to join
Yeah.
the army. Like what made you join, and then what was your decision process, if or how involved you were in the decision process to go like infantry 11 Bravo?
Well,
That's pretty cool.
I guess. I mean, I guess I had always had a thing for the military when I was a kid. I was always very interested. I mean, I still am a huge history buff. I love anything to do with like World War II and
Same.
stuff like that. I guess I always kind of had and my grandfather always talked about, he did a short stint in the Marine Corps, but he was honorably discharged for his eyesight, but he was a big marksman, and he got me into kind of shooting and stuff. And
Oh,
I,
cool.
I guess I always, I guess yeah, it's funny. He was blind as a bat, but he was an amazing shot. He, he was discharged from the Marines because, I guess they decided he wouldn't be a very effective Marine because he wore Coke bottle glasses. So he actually didn't even finish boot camp because they realized that when he'd take his glasses off to go take a shower, he literally couldn't see. So he was
Wow.
honorably discharged, but he went on to be a competitive marksman in Canada and I think like the Pacific Northwest. So he was real big into shooting, and he always got me into guns. And he would shoot against like the police and some of their rifle teams and stuff, and he was very good. So I guess he always got me into it. He always told me to go in the Marines because I think he always had a disposition of that. But I always knew I kind of wanted to do it, at least give it a shot. And then actually a buddy of mine I went to high school with, he joined the army, and I guess he and I kind of just fed off each other, and we both kind of went in.
Yep.
And it
I
was
have a
kind
similar
of
experience.
right. I kind of I had thought about doing a technical job in the military. I get one of my old teachers always said, he's like, if you're gonna go in, you should do something that you can do when you get out, And he's like, why do you want to go in and just be a grunt? And I was like, well, I guess I think if I want to do it, I want to do it. Um, not to say that there's much higher things than 11 Bravo, like the Green Berets and all that stuff. And I don't know. I guess I just decided I want to do something different and give it a shot. So kind of just figured if I went in, I wanted to do something cool. And if, I decided to get out, I could always go back into the trades, or I'd have time to do something else after the fact. So I guess that's a big reason I went in. And I always, like I said, I always kind of looked up to people that served. And,
Yep.
I had a lot of respect I had a great uncle who fought in World War II, and I always held him in a very high regard. So I guess it was just kind of one of those things. I always wanted to give it a shot, try it, and do something.
That's cool, man. I had a very similar experience. My grandfather was in the Air Force in the
Okay.
Korean War. But when you talk about you and was your paternal or maternal grandfather that you learned how to shoot with?
He was my father's dad. Yeah, so my paternal grandfather.
Yeah, for some reason when you were telling me that story, I couldn't help but think of that movie Enemy at the Gates, the intro scene to that. Have you seen that movie Enemy at the
Oh, when they
Gates?
shoot the wolf. Yes.
Yeah. I think it's him and his grandfather. You know,
Yeah.
they're in the like this snowy, wilderness. I'm
Right.
picturing like you and your grandfather in like, the countryside in Massachusetts or Maine, and then like young Chris MacNeil is trying
No,
to defend the flock. It wasn't
nothing
that. It
like
wasn't
that.
that.
No,
Okay. All
nothing like that. Maybe like shooting at a range.
right. Okay. So you weren't defending
My
your herd
he
or
wasn't
anything.
he wasn't a hunter or anything. He was just a real big target shooter.
Were you eating
Um,
snow while you were shooting targets at least?
Maybe not. He was probably just ramming the safety stuff down my throat, which is good because he was real big into gun safety, so that's kind of where I learned that from.
Yeah.
But no,
This scene
nothing
is so
nothing as
crazy.
cool as this scene, and they're using it what, a Mosin Nagant.
Probably. Yeah.
His
Probably
his
some
his would have
flavor.
been an old Winchester.
Okay. That makes sense. Anyway, that's cool, man. I think it's really that's kind of like I've taken my son shooting before, and it's kind of a cool like bonding experience.
It
Like
is.
you're yeah, because you're dealing with this tool. I mean, I view it as a tool, right?
Oh, I do
It's something
too.
that's like yeah, it's something that you have to have a lot of respect for because
Oh
it can
yeah, and
really cause a
I
lot of
truly
harm.
believe if you're gonna pick up a gun, you need to have you know respect, and you got to be in a sober state of mind, and you can't the second you lose respect for it, I think you should put it down. And that's one thing he really reinforced into my head as a kid. Is he was very the safest guy. If you pointed a stick at my grandfather, he'd yell at you and say, "What if that was real?" He was very, very. It was almost like a ritual with him. It was almost like a religion. The way he was so safe, and even like
Totally.
shooting pellet guns in the backyard, I would get a new pellet gun and shoot with him. Bring it down. He lives in Connecticut. Lived in Connecticut rather. Um, and I would bring my pellet gun and shoot in the backyard. And even as with a pellet gun, he still treated it like it was
Yep.
any other firearm he would handle. So I guess he was probably the best person to learn from as far as safety. And then it was funny because they always said it skipped a generation because my dad wasn't as much into guns,
Yeah.
but my grandfather was, and then I got into it, and then my dad kind of vicariously got into it after the fact.
Oh, cool.
So now he shoots, and he enjoys it now, and he's got a few guns himself, and he enjoys the sport. So
No, that's awesome, man. I'm always fascinated by people that grew up in New England. I just feel
Mhm.
like in general, the people I meet from New England, either mainly through the army, are just kind of like hardy people who enjoy those types of outdoor activities and work hard. The work ethic, the
Oh, the work
education.
ethic's definitely.
Yeah, the work ethic's a real thing.
Yeah.
I mean, it
People
is.
people from people from the South are a lot nicer. Everybody from New England's an Massachusetts. At least Massachusetts. It's funny because I always say that. I'm like, you don't get you go to Boston and it's just and it's like down in the South. I'm like, man, everybody's so much more pleasant. It's one
I
thing
think
I
people in New
always
England are more
notice.
direct,
Oh,
way
they
more
are.
direct.
Yeah, there's a lot of that. There's a lot more direct. I guess it depends on where in New England you're from.
Yeah, that's true.
Massachusetts has a habit of they call us. They call. I mean, I guess I'm a Mass by definition, but and then people from New Hampshire are just half of southern New Hampshire is just people that moved from Massachusetts. So
Yeah, I've heard
they
that.
call us
Yeah,
Flatlanders, unfortunately.
Flatlanders.
Yeah,
Oh wow. Okay, I didn't know that was a term for that.
it is a term. I guess it's a derogatory term because a lot of people from Mass move to New Hampshire and then vote like they still live in Mass and change some of the political. I'm not one of those people. I won't get into it, but
No, I hear
yeah,
you. I hear you, man.
yeah, no, I guess you're right. People tend to be more direct. I guess the hospitality in the South is a lot more. I would say people I've met from this, they're I don't know, maybe a little more friendly, if I had to say. Not that
Yeah,
there's not
maybe,
nice
maybe.
people up here, but I always found like, wow, people down south are a lot more pleasant. But there's definitely a big work ethic up here. I feel like everybody works hard.
When you first left Massachusetts, I'm assuming were you were you how young were you when you actually went to
I
MEPS
was
and went to
19.
basic? 19. Okay.
19. Yep, I had finished high
Okay.
school like 2 weeks before that.
Oh, okay. You joined right away. Okay,
I
that's
left. Yep,
cool.
I went right in after high school.
So, I mean, we can gloss over basic AIT. What surprised you about being at your first unit in the army? Like what surprised you?
What as far as in basic or Fort Bliss?
Fort Bliss, more
Oh,
likely. Yeah.
well, I guess the desert. I've never been to the desert before. um, what surprised me? I guess being around a bunch of different people that I guess just in general, once I get in and you're introduced to all these different guys from all around the country, it's kind of interesting to see how everything's a little different and people, I guess, different. People from different backgrounds. I was never around that such a diverse group of people ever, especially being that young.
Yeah, totally. Do you feel like that shaped your worldview a little bit as you went into your 20s and 30s?
I think so. Yeah, I
Okay.
think I think so definitely because I met people that I never would have even had the privilege of knowing. I guess without going in.
Ah, beautiful. You said that really, really nicely. Yeah, I like the mix. The mix of people is incredible, but then the commonality is like, all right, we all signed up during a volunteer force, right?
Right.
That's the common thread. So we all had something in common, both in our intent and then, obviously the American flag on your right shoulder too. I think that meant something to all of us.
Hmm.
And people join for different reasons, but I think anyone that signs up and in the middle of two wars essentially, even though Iraq was winding down when you and I went on active duty. Um, that's really meaningful to me. I think that kind of attracts a certain type of person where there's just not very many of us that A, served in any sort of capacity as a service member, but then B, signed up for an infantry role, and then
Hmm.
C, got deployed, forward to a cop and were essentially on the front lines. I think
Hmm.
that's a pretty minuscule percentage.
Oh, I would
If
agree.
Yeah, it felt so. It took me a long time to realize this because it felt more common because you have these bonds with these friends that you have forever, so you think it's more normal than it actually is. But then when I just like off the cuff, now that I've kind of been removed from active duty for so long, I think I was talking to a buddy on the phone yesterday, or no, it was Thursday night. I think I called him, talked to him for like 30 minutes, and I just was telling him about some of the stories from southern Afghanistan. I share pretty openly now,
Oh
just
yeah,
because I feel like people deserve to know if they ask. I'm not going to just
yeah. I mean,
volunteer.
some people ask uh, in better ways than others. You always have some of the people I've worked with. They're like, "Oh, did you kill anybody?" Like they always. It's like those are the people I prefer not to talk to. But like the ones that
No,
there's a
no.
few people that genuinely are interested and they have a
Mhm.
interest in the military and veterans and stuff. And those people, I would share with them. But it's again anybody that's interested, I suppose. But again, I've had guys approach me like that, and I'm like, well, well, I'm not gonna. You have a very different idea about like what it's all about, I guess maybe.
Totally. I feel the same way. And if it's a friend that's trying to either seek understanding from a veteran perspective, like you mentioned, or just wants
Mhm.
to get to know that side of you, maybe they
Right,
just want to get to know that side of Chris MacNeil. Like that's a part of who you are.
right.
And so your close friends that have an interest or your family members, like they're gonna want to know that side of you in a genuine way.
Mhm.
I'm kind of like an open book. I'm like, oh yeah, I'll tell you whatever you want. Like I don't really care. But I think
Right.
he was kind of shocked. Like my friend, he's a really good guy. I really really like this guy, but he was kind of shocked by some of the stories. I think just in general, like what we kind of our experience was kind of foreign to him. He had a
Yeah.
hard time wrapping his head around
Well,
it.
I guess maybe it's someone who hasn't done it. It's a little unusual to like put it in a way that they understand because they, maybe they have these like preconceived notions of what the military or deployment is like because they've seen movies and they maybe movies or just TV or the way the news. I guess it's it's such a different lifestyle that if you haven't experienced it, you got to kind of put it into terms that they get. Like I don't know. I mean, I guess yeah, some of the details they might some stuff, especially like the day to day life, even just being like in Fort Bliss and Garrison, where you're like, you guys sit around to do nothing until 5 o'clock at night, or you
Yes.
go you go walk around the motor pool for 8 hours a day.
Oh no,
you
dude,
know,
that motor pool in that 110-degree heat some days,
yeah,
it's just like my brain would start to boil. And I've
right,
made the
right, right,
decision now. I've made the decision. I am not living anywhere hot. I'm not living in a hot climate again.
yeah,
I'm just
yeah.
not.
It's I'm not. I'm a little too fair skinned for hot climates. But yeah, I mean, like I said, it's some of that stuff, it's, but, there's definitely been people I've talked to that generally want to know stuff and,
Yeah,
usually they pick it up, and you can explain it to them and they do want to listen, and I always try to share whatever I can with people like that.
same. No, I feel the same way. Like if someone has a genuine interest and they're just seeking to understand, I'm totally cool with it. If not, then I usually just keep it super surface level and don't
Right.
really.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah. I just don't really get into the details. But yeah, I distinctly remember you and I like both at Bliss and in Afghanistan, we just could not put enough sunscreen on our Irish faces. Yeah,
Yeah, no, I know.
it's
I
like, oh
probably
my
should have
god,
put more on.
I'm like translucent. Yeah, no, seriously. I
Yeah.
remember just I think you and I were pretty diligent about putting it on, but like ultimately, like it would either I don't know we'd sweat through it or we'd just
Yeah.
forget to put it on
I
occasionally
I
and just get roasted in the
I
sun.
get roasted too. I get real bad sunburn when I go ice fishing now. Especially if there's like snow on the well, it has happened to me a few times. I've been on like a lake that was covered in snow and that white snow just reflects. You wouldn't think you get a sunburn in the middle of February when it's 10 degrees out, but yeah.
Oh man, can you
Yeah.
tell me about ice fishing? This is one of those New England and Minnesota
Oh yeah.
specific things. Can you tell me like what the process is? what the ice fishing culture is all about, and like what you do to pass the time when you're waiting for a nibble.
Well, I guess the culture would depend on who you ask, because ice fishing kind of has this preconceived stigma that it's a drinking man's sport and it's all about drinking and just hanging out, which it can be. I guess
Okay,
I
all right.
typically don't. I go with a group of guys. I'm a member of a sportsman's club, actually, and we
Oh,
all have
cool.
like fishing pools and stuff, and we do a lot of that kind of stuff. So we have a big ice fishing pool.
That's
So
amazing.
yeah, it's nice. It gets competitive, as far as the pools, because there's a cash prize and we all kind of go fishing. But there's a group of guys that I kind of go with, and not all. Most of them don't drink. So for me, it's a lot less about drinking. But um, for some people, I mean, I've been up to like Winnipesaukee, and I've seen some pretty drunk people ice fishing. It's a thing. They'll go up there for um like the state of New Hampshire does a big derby, and I think it's at Winnipesaukee, and it's like all weekend, one weekend. So people will just stay up for like 3 days straight and just fish and fish. It's like a $10,000 grand prize.
Oh, okay. This
Yeah.
is like real money. Okay.
Oh
This
yeah,
is.
yeah. There's a
Oh,
lot of
okay.
there's a lot of derbies we do that pay money, and like there's cash prizes. But essentially what it is you go out. You got to make sure the ice is safe. Obviously, you need at least 3 inches of ice. I mean, this year down around here it's been a little dicey. We had a couple good weekends, but as of now, we've had some 50-degree days, so everything is open now up here. I mean, where
Okay.
I'm at, you got to go up to like Maine if you want any kind of good ice that's safe. But basically, the ice is safe. You go out there. A lot of times, we'll set up we have those little pop-up tents that you drill into the ice. Um, we don't have one of those gas augers. We got like a electric one, and you just basically drill holes. And we use, instead of rods, typically we use traps. So it's like a almost like a piece of wood with a reel on it, and it's got a flag. So it's got a system where you put the line in the water with bait. Usually we use like shiners or trout worms, depending on what you're fishing for. But you put it in the hole, and then the flag is almost on like a spring mechanism. So if you get a bite, the flag will actually pop up, and that's how you know
This
you
is
got a
really
fish. So
cool.
usually you'll be sitting around. Yeah, there you go. Yep, like tip up traps, stuff like that. And then they
This is
also,
really cool.
yeah, when you use we do use little jigging poles too. It's funny that the rods you use for ice fishing are like this big. They're called jigging poles.
Huh.
So you'll kind of just sit there and jig, catch different fish. But you'll set traps up, and usually, we got a hut going. We put the heater in it, and you'll
That's
just kind
nice.
of hang out and watch, and then somebody else flag, and you see a flag go up, and you run, and then
Huh.
usually with any luck, there's a fish. If you get close and you start seeing the reel in the water going nuts, you know you got a good one.
Dude,
Um,
this is really. I did not know that this is how it worked.
oh yeah, no, it is. It's that's why it's a drinking man sport, because you could sit there and get hammered and just wait for a flag to go up.
Yeah, but even if you don't drink, you can really invest in the conversation,
Oh
the
yeah, well it's
community.
it's
Like
a whole thing,
that's
because
cool. That
we
sounds
bring.
fun to me.
It is fun because we bring like a grill out with us, and
Oh,
we'll
dude.
cook breakfast and stuff, and we'll hang out, and we got food going and stuff, and it's always like we do like a big members derby at our club when the lake that the club is on freezes, and everybody's out there, and different guys are cooking different stuff, and people got like their four-wheelers going and snowmobile. It is a lot of fun. It definitely is. It is enjoyable, and like I said, that's it's definitely, some people go nuts. They build like huts with wood stoves in them, and they pull them out on sleds, and they leave them there all winter. you know
Wow.
yeah, it's a whole thing. I mean, like I said, it sucks this year, and last year wasn't that great in southern New Hampshire and like Mass, where I'm at, because it didn't really get cold enough. But up
Yeah, this
up in
is.
Maine,
Yeah.
there's people that drive their trucks out on the ice, and they have like whole villages out there. It's pretty cool to see. And like I said, they'll stay out there for days, just sleep on the ice and fish, and it is a lot of fun.
Yeah, there's something about being like immersed in the cold
Yep.
If you have the right gear, what
Yeah,
kind of heater do you guys use?
I got one of those little Mr. Buddy heaters and stuff.
How are
It's
those?
just a little. It's actually not bad. I mean, if you
Yeah,
put
yeah,
it in a
okay.
tent, you put it in an ice hut, and you can get the heater going as long as you leave some ventilation. Um, it's pretty. They heat up the tents pretty well. Like I said, some
Okay.
guys have huts that they build and they put wood stoves in them, and
Wow.
they put them on skis and they tow them out with a truck or a snowmobile. They have bunk beds in them, because people will just
Oh,
sleep.
okay.
Yeah, I mean, you sleep and fish and go back and forth. I mean, like I said, that New Hampshire Derby is like a $10,000 grand prize,
Okay, I need to look at
so it's
this.
it's pretty it's a pretty big deal. And
Oh, you're not kidding, man. Dude, this like some of these fishing huts, let me pull this up real quick.
yeah, I really
Some of
want
these
to build
fishing
one.
huts are legit.
Mm, yeah, I mean, like I said, they
Oh,
they pull them right on the ice, and they got a wood stove, like the comforts of home. I've seen
oh,
some
that's
really cool ones
cool.
up at Lake Winnipesaukee in New Hampshire. They got like cool names on them and stuff too.
This is really legit.
Yep.
So it looks like some of them like do like prefab ones,
Hmm.
and then some of them are probably more home built. But
Yeah,
this
you
is
could.
like a thing.
I've seen. I knew one guy that built. He built like the skis for his out of like inch and a half steel pipe, and then he built just basically a platform. Yeah, that's a really intricate one.
So these are the holes that you would fish out of down here.
Yes, exactly. Yep.
Okay. I do this. I'm so glad you explained this to me
Yep.
because I've talked to people and they've invited me ice fishing. Like, oh, you got to come out to Minnesota, go ice fishing.
Oh, you should. I'd love
I
to go to
want to.
Minnesota and ice fish because they got like the muskies out there and all that kind of stuff.
This is so cool. And so, yeah, so you can tow this on a
Yep.
sled or. Okay, this is legit, man.
Yeah, I guess people make them out of trailers too.
Yeah. Okay, this is way more
Oh
extensive
yeah.
than what I
Like I
was
said,
thinking.
some people get really into it. I
Okay.
have a little tent from Bass Pro Shops that fits like two people in it, and I just pitch it and drill the holes in the ice, put the spikes in, and then there is no floor, so you just sit there and you can drill your hole in there and sit and jig and fish and whatever. One of my friends has like a sonar kind of fish finder thing that he uses. He drills a hole and he puts that thing down, and then he can see if anything's coming, like what depth they're at and stuff. I mean, it's like I said, you can go nuts with it. I mean, there's just you can spend a lot of money. I actually just spent. I bought. I have a suit that I wear when I ice fish. It's like a cold weather suit, but it's a flotation suit. So it's like bibs, like overalls, and it's a jacket. But if you were to fall through the ice, it would actually inflate and keep you afloat.
Oh,
Yeah, there
dude.
was big money. It was like, oh man, it was like $400 for the suit. Luckily, I got like $400 in Bass Pro gift cards for Christmas, and that's what I spent the whole thing on. Is just one of these. It just, like I said, if you can watch videos on it when they cut a hole in the ice and the guy jumps in, and you actually will stay afloat because the jacket itself and the pants are like a flotation device. So, and it
Oh, I've
keeps you
never heard of
super
that.
warm too. Yeah, it's insulated, and like I said, if you were to fall through the ice, it would puff out, so you can't go all the way down. But yeah, the sky's the limit with some of the stuff you can buy. It's
Yeah.
expensive. Can be.
It can. Oh, yeah, dude. It's what fascinates me about the U.S. and our variety of terrain and the hobbies that people engage in is like, dude, you can pretty much spend as much as you want on any hobby in the U.S. and people get like crazy into it, whether it be
Oh yeah.
skiing, fishing, boating. I mean, there's like almost no limit to what people will spend if they're really into it.
Oh yeah. I've definitely seen that. Any of that stuff is just expensive now.
Yeah,
But
having the right gear can help and make it more
right.
enjoyable, though.
Yeah, and it's like I said, I always like I get into new stuff, and I always try to like not spend. Like I've gotten into duck hunting these past couple of years and turkey and stuff like that, and I've been trying to not like buy the nicest stuff right off the bat, but then you kind of realize that you're just going to buy it again. You're just going to have to replace it. So it's like I guess buying good stuff that'll last is important. But I definitely have some friends that just go ape shit with buying like all the crazy cool guy gear. You know what I mean? But
No, I have the same
Yeah,
friends for a variety of hobbies. My
right.
my MO has always been to buy like top of the line stuff used if I can find it.
Yeah, that's a good way to be. I've definitely gotten some used stuff. I mean, you can get. I mean, I've gotten used fishing gear that's awesome. I've
Yep,
won like raffles of used stuff before, and it ends up being really good. But
totally.
used stuff is, yeah, that's always a good way to go. Some of
Yeah,
my ice fishing
yeah.
traps were my father-in-law's, and they're pretty old, but they still work great.
Oh, cool.
You know.
Oh, that's really cool, man.
Yep.
Yeah, I've always found like if I want to try out a new hobby, if I'm somewhat committed to it, I'll buy it used and then just get a really top of the line brand and try to whittle them down as much as possible. And then I've typically found if I get out of the hobby, like I bought this really high end mountain bike when I was in
Hmm.
Colorado, and I think I paid it was like more than I'd ever spent on a bicycle. It was like $2,100, but it was like
Hmm.
a top of the line, cross country full suspension mountain bike. And then when I left Colorado, I sold it for like $2,400 because like it had the brand recognition and the model recognition to where like the cost of ownership was super low.
Yeah.
So, but if I'd done that with like let's say one or two tiers below that brand, I would not have been able to resell it as quickly.
No, no. A lot of people do pay for the brand name, and that goes with anything. You pay for the name.
You do, yeah. I found out recently, like a lot of these textiles that are being sold in Cabela's or Bass Pro Shop, like they're typically made in Southeast Asia. They're manufactured somewhere in India or Southeast Asia, and like they're typically made in like the same manufacturing facility as like a bunch of other brands, and it's like the same, but they just charge more money for the same material just because the brand's on. Like it's literally the same material.
Yeah, I've noticed they have their own like Bass Pro Shop brand of stuff,
Yep.
and it's I don't know. But it's so easy to go in there and just drop like $300.
It
Some of the stuff is
is.
so expensive. Even like going in there to buy gloves, I'm like, oh my god, I just spent $50 on a pair of gloves. you
No,
know?
I know. Yeah, I'm always looking for deals on gloves, man. Like gloves
Yeah,
are like critical. Like I feel like my hands are still like missing nerve endings from the army just because like being in like the elements and being in the
yeah,
cold and like you're touching cold metals all the time and
yeah.
weapons and my index fingers and my middle fingers they don't have much feeling in them.
No, yeah. I
So
I think I have the same thing, but that could be from welding. Always accidentally touching hot stuff. Tips of my fingers. I don't
yeah.
I don't really feel anything anymore.
So I went to go get fingerprints done recently,
Mhm.
and the police officer was such an awesome dude. I love our cops, dude. Cops, I love our police officers, man.
Oh
They're like
yeah.
heroes among us. And so I always try to be like really nice to them,
Oh
especially
yeah.
he's
No, I
working.
yeah, I am
Yeah,
too, definitely.
so he's working like an additional duty as a fingerprint guy at the
Yep.
courthouse, right? And so I was getting the fingerprints done, and he was saying like, he's like, I don't know exactly what's wrong. I've never really seen this before, but you don't have any fingerprints. Like your fingerprints are like not complete. I'm like, yeah, I've been exposed. Like I've been, my fingerprints have probably been rubbed off. And I thought it was kind of funny. He was like, he had a hard time like getting, the whatever fingerprint reader he was using to like read my fingerprints. And I was like, oh my gosh, dude. But that's a side story. I guess the funny thing that I bought a fishing pole as soon as I got out of the army. I bought an ugly
Yep.
stick, thinking
Oh,
I'd have
nice.
all this. Yeah, oh, awesome fishing pole. Like I got a brand new from I think Bass Pro, and I thought, oh, now that I'm out of the army, I'll have all this free time to go fishing. I think I've
Nope.
used it like 3 times, man. I feel
Yeah.
sad. It's been sitting in my shed, and I have used it, and I'll probably use it more once my kids get into fishing. But I've just continued to have kids and like getting busier with my
Yeah.
career that I have not made time for that hobby, and I love fishing.
Yeah. No, it is fun. I love saltwater fishing. Ice
Same.
fishing. Yeah. Freshwater. I mean, yeah, it is a commitment thing, and sometimes getting up at 5 a.m. on a Sunday isn't always the most appealing thing. But
Right?
when you got to get up the next day, I guess. But I mean, I try to make time for it. I'm hoping my kid's gonna be into fishing, and I always was big into it with my father when I was a kid. So it is one of those things you got to try to make time for it. I mean, some of the guys I go with are so competitive, though. That's like what they do.
Yeah.
A couple of my
Yeah. Yeah.
friends
Yeah.
work for themselves too, so they can move their schedule around, going out for a little bit and doing a few casts and stuff.
That sounds nice.
Yep.
Yeah. My son and I tried out fly fishing for the first time out in West Virginia,
Okay.
and it was challenging. but man,
I've
that was
never done
fun.
it. Can't.
It
I
was
always
fun.
want to learn. I've never
Yeah,
been able to do it.
yeah.
Or
It's cool.
I've never actually tried. I should say I always wanted to. A lot of guys fly fish in the ocean around here, which is pretty crazy to
Oh,
see. Yeah, they actually like striped bass fishing is big up where I live. So there's a lot of guys that fly fish on like the flats, and it's pretty crazy to watch them because I've seen like I was out fishing up in Newburyport, Mass, probably like a year ago, and I was fishing off the rocks, and there was this old guy that came out, and he was wearing like short white uh, khaki shorts and tube socks and like New Balance sneakers, and he
love it.
had like a belt with like a Tupperware container on it on his hip. And I was like, what the hell is this guy doing? And he's
Huh.
fly fishing, and what he's actually doing is when he's stripping his line, he's throwing it into the Tupperware container so it doesn't get hung up on the rocks. So it was
Oh, I've
pretty
never seen
crazy to
anybody do
watch.
that.
No, because yeah, he was on like the jetty at Plum Island in Newburyport, and
Cool.
he was fly fishing, but he was stripping his line into this Tupperware basket, and I was like, that now I see why he's doing it, because if he hadn't had that basket, because you got to strip the line as you go back and forth. Like I said, I've never done it, so I can't. I'm probably butchering it, but if he hadn't had that, it probably wouldn't have worked because it would have got hung up on the rocks. But he had this bucket that he was just stripping his line into, and it just seemed to work
Oh,
perfectly.
I love homemade contraptions like that, don't
Yeah.
you?
I don't even, maybe he bought it. I don't know. Maybe it was something you can go to the store and get, but it never even occurred to me. I just thought it was weird seeing it, but it
Yeah.
worked.
Dude, humans are amazing. A lot of people don't realize that New Hampshire has coastline.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize that. And one of the other guys I met from New England in the army is from New Hampshire. I don't remember what city in New Hampshire, but he always raves about New Hampshire. He's still in the army right now, but he's like, dude, as soon as I get out of the army, I'm moving back to New Hampshire as
Yeah.
fast as possible. And one of the things he loved doing was surfing. And when the surfing is at its best is in the wintertime. And he was talking about all the dry suit or wetsuit that he had to wear. And he said the surfing in New Hampshire, like in the dead of winter, is incredible.
Yeah.
And I'm like, dude,
Let me
whoa,
guess. He's up at probably Hampton Beach.
I have no idea.
I'll bet you $10 that's where he's at, because that's where a lot of people surf.
Yeah,
Yeah. New Hampshire does have a coastline,
yeah. I
and
mean, it's got what, like 17, 30 miles of coast. I mean, it's not a lot, but it's
not a
big.
lot. Yeah, he's probably like Hampton area, maybe Rye, Seabrook, one of those places. It's. I mean, it borders on Mass, so the Mass coast. It
Oh,
kind of just continues, the Mass coastline. I mean, I fish a lot in Mass still, because there's a lot of good places in Massachusetts. Like Plum Island is where I go a lot, because it's right on, the Atlantic is right there, and it's got two rivers that bisect it on each side. So there's all kinds of wildlife and different fish there, and you can fish right in the mouth of the river. It's nice.
that
But
sounds
yep.
amazing.
Oh yeah, it's fun. We have a lot of fun.
It's so
Um,
beautiful up there. I
yep.
love New England. I've only been in the summer and then maybe part of the fall. I went to Boston. Boston's
Yep.
pretty cool. It's a nice little walkable town. But what I really like is getting outside the city.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it is nice. The snow gets kind of old, but
Yeah.
it's it is the Four Seasons is pretty nice. It's a lot of stuff to see.
What's your favorite part of New Hampshire?
Part well, like town.
Sure. Yeah, I want to come up there. My buddy's like, dude, you got to come up to New Hampshire and Maine and check it out. I was like, all right. I was like, that's cool. But he mentioned a few places, but I can't remember. Apparently, there's a lot of nice towns in New Hampshire.
Oh yeah, I mean, I live in like a nice small town. It's pretty quiet, I guess. I don't know. I really like it around where I live. I would say. I've been, up to like North Conway and stuff. That's nice.
Okay.
Mount Washington. That's cool. But
You were
yeah, there's
pretty,
a lot of
yeah.
sites. There's a lot of sites to see. It's tough to kind of nail one down specifically.
You guys have so much like going for you up there. I feel like whenever I go up to New England and like the air is just clean. It's not
Hmm.
as humid up there as it is down where I live. I don't know. It's just really nice. The sea breeze off
Yep,
Massachusetts is really nice. I don't know. I
hmm
just really like the atmosphere up there.
it is. It is nice. Taxes
Man.
aren't nice.
Yeah. They get you. I guess you
Oh
pay
yeah,
for what
you
you
pay
get what
for
you pay
something.
for.
Yep. Yeah, the
What are they
tax.
doing with
They.
what are they doing with all this tax revenue anyway? I always wonder
Oh,
like where is this stuff going?
I
To a
don't
black
know.
hole or something like that? Like where like
That is one thing. That is one thing about New Hampshire. There is no income tax in New Hampshire, but the property tax is like through the
they get
roof.
you.
Oh,
They
they
get
get
you.
you on the property tax. It's the school systems. There's a really good school in my town, so I think you pay a lot for the school. Whereas Mass, the property tax is a lot less, but the income tax they gaff you pretty bad on income tax.
Dang.
So it's kind
Yeah.
of and New Hampshire, you can have pretty much any kind of gun you want, which is nice.
It's kind of unique in that way up there. I guess
Definitely
Maine too.
live free or die. Yeah, Maine is pretty good. Mass is like horrible if you want to if you're a firearms owner in Mass, it kind of is unfortunate because you can't have any of the good stuff or cool stuff.
Yeah, that's how it is down here. If you go across the border to DC or Maryland, it's a way different regulatory environment. New Jersey,
Hmm.
especially, we don't share a border with New Jersey, but it's not that far away. It's just a way different regulatory environment to where like if you were actually, hunting in another state, let's say I wanted to drive up there and go hunting with you, you'd have to be really cognizant of the laws en route.
Yeah,
So, I don't know.
yeah, that's I guess up here too is the hunting laws are a little different in New Hampshire than Mass. I mean, some I guess the seasons are different, but um, there is some differences in the laws. Definitely got to pay attention to that when it comes to hunting because
Totally.
it's pretty strict and pretty enforced. But it's always good. Anybody that is going to get into it should definitely take a class. I took a hunter safety class, and it's good because it's informative, and they'll tell you like what you can and can't do with certain stuff, and some of the laws. It's funny. Like in Massachusetts, you can't hunt on Sundays. It's one of those blue laws, and it's still enforced.
Wow.
You
Yeah,
cannot hunt on
didn't
Sunday
realize
in
that.
Massachusetts, but in New Hampshire you can.
Huh. Okay.
So it's just different. But that is an old like blue law, and I'm not sure why it's still in effect, but it is. So, but you'll get a fine if you get caught hunting on Sunday in Mass.
Do you maintain hunting and fishing licenses in both New Hampshire and Mass?
Yes, I do.
Okay,
Yep.
cool.
Yeah,
That's cool.
I I deer hunt kind of up behind my house because I have woods, and then I do a lot of like
So
waterfowl
cool.
stuff in Mass. Um, I turkey hunt up here. I'm pretty new to it, honestly. I can't even I've had a lot more luck duck hunting than anything, but I do enjoy it. I just got into it like a year and a half ago, so I'm still pretty new to it. I'm still learning, but I try to get out when I can. It is fun. I always wish I got into it as a kid, but I never really had anybody that was into it when I was young, so didn't really get into it until I was in my 30s.
I love duck hunting. I think that's probably the most enjoyable form of hunting that I've participated in. And
Oh, you have? Oh,
oh yeah,
I
I
think
learned
it's
how to.
fun.
Yeah, it's awesome.
It's good because you can go with a bunch of people and you don't really necessarily have to sit there and be like dead quiet. You can kind of shoot the shit, and it's a little bit more fast paced. Um, I do enjoy it a lot. Deer hunting's good too, but it can get sitting by yourself in a tree stand for 5 hours. You get kind of you can get kind of restless and bored, I guess. But it's not always you go out a lot of times you don't see anything.
Totally. That's been
But
my experience. Is like I think out of the times I've been deer hunting, I think more times than not, I haven't even seen a single
yeah,
deer, or at least one I could take a shot at. And
yeah.
duck hunting is a little more dynamic. I feel like I've never done it out of a boat. I don't know if you do it out of a boat or standing.
We so that same place I'm a member at, we have a couple blinds that we built on the pond that we duck hunt on that same pond, and we have some blinds that we built. So we'll take a boat out to the blind, and then we'll sit there. We'll set decoys up. We'll call, and then we'll call them in and stuff. But I don't know if I've done it out of a boat. Usually we use the boat to get to where we're going.
Oh, cool.
You know,
Okay.
I know some guys. I've seen some people set up those duck boats with the blinds, and those are pretty cool. I can't say I've done that. Usually, it's we have like a blind in the marsh, or maybe just even walking through a swamp trying to jump them. I've done that. Just jump shooting ducks. That's good. Um, yeah, usually blind is what we do. But like I said, you need a boat to get out there, and then we do some Canadian goose hunting too. And usually we do that in a field. So we'll like lay down in the field and use cover, and we'll set up fake geese, and we'll same thing. We'll call them in, or one of my friends owns a farm, so his uncle will like leave a couple rows of corn, and we'll sit in the corn and try to set up decoys and call them in. But do a lot of that. I'm with you on that though. I enjoy waterfowl hunting probably the most.
Oh, for sure. I'm speaking for myself. I love it. I learned how to duck hunt in El Paso.
Really? Yeah, I guess there is that a big thing in El Paso?
Surprisingly, yes. There's a
Huh.
so you have the border fence, which we're all aware of. You see it, on the TV more recently. But the actual physical border between the U.S. and Mexico is the Rio Grande River.
Yep.
So there's like a 50-meter strip of land that's 50 meters wide and call it maybe 6 miles long that has some of the best duck hunting in the country, from my
Really?
perspective. Yeah, yeah. So I would do that, and you kind of had to know about it. I got into it in 2014, 15, like right when you were getting out of the army.
Hmm.
I kind of had a couple hunting trips when I got back, and yeah, we would go. I mean, it was 20 minutes from post, and you go
Hmm.
down. You actually drive through the border fence. You wave to the border patrol guys, like, all
Oh
right,
man.
and you actually set up shop. We would dove hunt there too, but
Oh wow.
yeah, we would limit out on dove and duck routinely down there. It was amazing
Wow. Well,
because they would
I
roost in one side of the border, and then they would fly over and
see.
it
I
just
wish I wish I had gotten into that so much younger. I
same,
love it. I
same.
know a lot of a good friend of mine that I go with. He actually went. I want to say last month to. He did a big trip to Texas, but it wasn't El Paso. I forget where he went, but he went. He went after like sandhill cranes and stuff like that. This guy is like a fanatic duck hunter. He goes like all over the country and duck hunts. But I never knew that was a thing in El Paso. I wish
I was shocked.
I wish I had known. I wish I had, like I said, I wish I had gotten into it a lot sooner.
Yeah, my objective in El Paso was always, and my wife and I both felt strongly about this. We'd always try to make an effort to like get out of El Paso, just because I mean the weather was nice in the spring and fall and part of the winter, but like in the summer, at least for me, I think you feel the same way. The heat was just like unbearable.
Yeah.
So yeah, we would drive to New Mexico. We would go to Albuquerque. We'd go to Cloudcroft, New Mexico. We went to this place called Bluff Springs in Cloudcroft, and we would camp on top of this like old waterfall. I'll show you a picture of it, but I just had to get out of, and you're
Yep.
camping at like 9,000 feet.
I've only been to
Um,
the Rio Doso and maybe Las Cruces a few times, but I don't think I ever went to Albuquerque or anything like that. Went to that
yeah.
casino at Inn of the Mountain Gods a few times.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah, that was a cool place.
Dude, it's
New
so
Mexico
crazy.
was really nice. I will say
It
that was
was.
beautiful. Beautiful state.
Yeah. It really is. Yeah, it's definitely like a hidden gem if you know where to go.
Hmm.
But we would go to this place called the Lincoln National Forest, which is actually it was only like an hour north of El Paso, maybe an hour and a half. And so that was like the closest, you know, place you could go to escape the brutal heat of El Paso.
Yep.
Here, let me see. Here it is. I think this is it right here. Yeah. So this is just like a little snippet, but it's beautiful. I mean, you could hike for 10 miles and then set up a campsite and not see a single human being. So this is
Huh.
one of the
Oh wow.
trails. Yeah, it's like it's the same train as
You
like
wouldn't
some of
even
the
know you were
Colorado.
in New Mexico.
Not at all.
No,
Not
you
at
you
all.
think you were like in Oregon or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's very reminiscent of some of like the mountain and desert environments of Oregon. But yeah, we'd wake up and see all sorts of wildlife. There's some beautiful overlooks, and it was typically about 25 degrees cooler both in the day and at night. So you had to bundle up. I mean, there's
Yeah.
times we'd wake up and our tent would be covered in snow.
Really? Oh wow.
Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. This was our campsite right here. We would camp like right around here. I can't recommend it enough. Anybody that's living in El Paso or Las Cruces, definitely check out the Lincoln National Forest. It's a hidden gem. I'm so glad that someone introduced me to it
Yeah, wow. I wish I
because
had.
it was like such a nice escape from El Paso, and it was only like, I didn't have a whole lot of money back then, so I was like, it was kind of a free activity. Yeah,
Well, I
like
guess if
maybe
you're camping, right, it's free.
yeah, it's a national forest, so like
Right.
there's no fees. You literally just there's no permits, there's no fees. I think there's like you're not supposed to camp there if you're doing backcountry camping for more than like 7 consecutive days. Like you're supposed to have a permit, I think.
Yeah.
Don't quote me on that, but it's like there's no fees otherwise. So if you're going for a 4 day, I mean, my wife and I would literally bring like ramen noodles and like those little canned chicken things,
Oh, yeah. Yep. Yep.
like little can of chicken, and then we would bring like little packets of Cholula or Tabasco. Like
There you
it's
go.
like yeah, so
What
it's
else
like
do you need? I was gonna say just as a caveat off of that, if, as a veteran, you get into any national park for free
oh
and any national refuge. Actually, my wife, I have
no
to give her the
way.
credit, found that out. We took a ride out to that same place I go fishing last weekend. We wanted to take a drive, and Parker River Wildlife Refuge is out there. And I brought my federal duck stamp because you have to purchase that to waterfowl hunt. And one of my friends had told me, well, if you have a duck stamp, you can get into any national park or wildlife refuge for free with showing the duck stamp. So we pulled up to the gate, and when you get the duck stamp, you're supposed to attach it to your hunting license.
Yeah. Yep.
I I don't because I want to collect it. I just print out the thing that says I bought it, but I'm trying to start a collection of those because they're really
Cool,
nice,
man.
stamps. But I brought it to the gate, and the guy was like, "Well, you have to sign it, and you'd have to attach it to your license for me to let you in for free." And then she was like, "Oh, he's also a veteran." And he's like, "Oh, if you're a veteran, you get in for free anyway." So I showed him my VA card, and I got right in. So that's
Oh, I
that's
didn't know
something I
that.
had no idea, that if you're a veteran, you get into any national park or national wildlife refuge for free.
I thought it was just for active duty. So you heard it here first. Well, not first, but you heard it from Chris MacNeil. I didn't know it applied to veterans too. I thought it was just active duty.
No, I showed him my
Yeah.
VA
No, I think
health
you're right
card.
now.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I
Oh,
yeah, I had no
sweet.
idea myself. And like I said, I was like, "Oh, I really don't want to take the stamp off and sign it," but luckily she elbowed me and said, "You're a veteran, you get in for free." And sure enough. But that's something that's good to know.
Yeah. When I talked to you before you and I got out of the army, at least off active duty, I feel like I can picture you packing up your F-150 that you purchased when we got back from deployment and
That
just
thing is long gone, my friend.
yeah, I figured. Yeah, I figured. It
Yeah.
had some miles on it when you bought it.
Yeah, I
I can
know.
picture
I
you like loading that thing up and then just getting on I-10 East or wherever. I don't know what route you took, but just pointing that truck back to New England.
I
Can you tell
I
me
I
about
had
that
I
feeling?
had it I
Leaving,
had I
yeah.
had it shipped home. I flew home.
Oh, okay. Well,
Yeah,
that's
I
even better.
that's that truck was definitely. I haven't been very smart with vehicle purchase. I suck at buying vehicles. I always tend to get the shit end of the stick with buying any kind of vehicle. I'm not good at it, I'll admit. That truck served me well, but I didn't want to risk driving it halfway across the country.
No,
So
that was
I paid
smart.
I paid a carrier and shipped it. I kept it I had it up until 2019 though. But I
Oh,
did I
good.
I did have my stuff shipped home. I had the vehicle shipped home, and then I just flew home.
That's way better. I
Yeah,
honestly, unless you like have some sort of like road trip
I
initiative,
I kind of
I
wanted to, but
yeah.
I didn't want to end up in like the middle of Arkansas at a truck stop with my radiator blown out or something. I I would have loved to have done it, but I kind of wanted to err on the side of caution. 2020 hindsight, I shouldn't have bought that truck. I should have bought like a um smaller
A Prius.
sedan or something like that. I guess that was an impulse decision when I first got back. I probably wasn't in any
Yeah, that's all
condition
right.
to be buying vehicles.
No, I was not.
you know,
I totally understand what you're saying. It's just like you have this feeling where like you're so glad to be back and have all your limbs and be in
yeah.
one piece that like your reference point for reality and long-term decision making, at least for me, was totally skewed.
Oh yeah,
Totally skewed.
definitely. I was just like, oh, it's a truck. It's got 4-wheel drive. Sign me up. I didn't even. Oh, I I wish I could go back to my 22-year-old me at that point now and smack myself upside the head. Look
Same,
around. Don't buy the first thing you see. You know,
same. No,
you had
no,
that
same here.
money from deployment burning a hole in your pocket.
I fell into the same trap.
Yep.
Yeah,
Well,
and
it's good. It's good that I'm not alone.
no, I fell into the same thing. My buddy from New Hampshire actually, he was leaving. I forget where he was leaving, but anyway, he was doing this big road trip during terminal leave in his old truck. He had an older
Yep.
truck than what you bought, and it did break down in the middle of the
Oh,
country on his way back. I think he was on his way back to New Hampshire, or maybe he was taking a more roundabout route, but it did break down in the middle of the country and stranded him.
oh, yeah. That was kind of what I was afraid of.
He was kind of SOL. I mean, he
Yeah.
had to kind of leave it somewhere and then just I don't know if he got a rental car to finish the trip or maybe he flew back,
Was it
but
the truck was just toast at that point? No way to fix it.
I don't know if he ended up getting it fixed. To be honest with you,
Yeah, I was worried like I'd have to max out a credit card to get the thing repaired. I was just, I don't know. I mean, it served me well for several years. I'll say that because I had the last few companies I worked for, I had a company vehicle and stuff, and I do now. So I didn't
oh,
necessarily need my own vehicle. So the truck was mainly just to get around town and picking stuff up at Home Depot, and I didn't go very far in it. You know what I mean? And now I have an actual company vehicle through the place I work now, so I don't typically need a personal vehicle. I take my wife's car if I we got to go somewhere on the weekends, but if I'm going to hang out with my friends, I usually just take the work truck and
yeah.
play dumb.
No, no. Having a work truck is honestly a huge benefit, and I think employers understand that, and it's pretty tax efficient too. Because like it's honestly, I had a director at one of my last companies tell me because he got a work truck at one of his previous jobs, and he's like, dude, it's pretty much like a 15 if they pay for the gas, it's pretty much like a 15 or 20 grand benefit when you think about the taxes,
Yep.
maintenance, insurance, gas. Like that's a huge benefit having a work truck that people
Yes,
underestimate.
it is. Yep, it is. It is definitely a benefit of working for a place that'll give you a vehicle. I mean, I guess it depends on who you talk to. Some places kind of upsell it. You know, they'll say that I've heard people try to say, "Oh, it's worth $15 an hour." I'm like, "Well, in what world
Wow,
is
I don't know
that?"
about
You know what I
that.
mean?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't know about that.
I've
Yeah.
heard people say that. I mean, I definitely think it's worth a certain amount, and it's, cuz but if you have to drive all over the place, that it kind of benefits them to give you a truck because you can't go do the work without and with the truck I have now, it's got a welder in it. It's got all my tools. I can't, I work out of that truck. Without that truck, I can't really do anything. You know what I mean? So everybody that I work with has the same setup, which is nice. You know?
Dude, that sounds cool, man. That honestly, like roaming around and not being stuck in an office and having like some really cool like technology on the back of this truck. That sounds
Yep.
interesting to me. And honestly, pipe welding, and again, you meet so many interesting people in the army. One of the guys that I was doing a training event with told me like in his previous career he was a pipe welder and then he just got kind of an itch to go serve. But dude, he made like really good money as a pipe welder, and he was telling me about all the crazy jobs he did and how complicated it was. Like it was one of those things where like I don't know what the spectrum is. Maybe you can describe this to the audience. What's the complexity of welding from like where would like an auto body welder be versus a pipe welder? Like what's the complexity on a
Well, it would.
scale?
I mean, the type of welding that I guess I'm into now is a lot more regulated. You know, we're worried about like passing X-rays and stuff, and a lot of stuff like a pipe welder would do would be stuff that's going to have gas or steam or something
Oh,
that's
okay.
dangerous going through it. So there's a little bit more of a. It depends on what it is you're welding for or who you're welding for. Um, some of the stuff I do is like high pressure steam or high pressure gas.
Okay.
So it's a lot of regulations, and you gotta kind of know what you're doing, and there is a lot of training that goes into it. Um, it's something that I've kind of worked up towards too, I would say. But some stuff isn't as regulated. Maybe some of the stuff I did when I first got into pipe welding because I worked for an HVAC company when I got out of the army, because that's, I had been a apprentice plumber before I went in the army, so I was kind of in the pipe trades, as it were. So I went to work for an HVAC company, and I remember my first job, we were doing this big project for a Subaru headquarters, and we were doing mechanical piping for like boiler systems and chilled water. And I was on site, and we were working. We had welders welding the pipe for us and stuff. And as the apprentice, I got the opportunity to work with some of the welders, and I was like, man, I really want to do this. Like, this is just something about it just seems cool. Maybe my attention span for the bright light and stuff really did set something off. I don't know, but I was always working with welders, and I always was like, man, I really want to learn. So I kind of took it upon myself to learn how to do it. And I picked everybody's brain, and I used my GI Bill to actually take a couple classes on welding. And I a lot of that stuff, like for the HVAC side of things, isn't really regulated. It's more like, as long as it doesn't leak, it's good. It's as long as it doesn't leak or break apart, it's good. There's not really like federal, like some of the stuff I do now has like federal regulations wrapped into it. So I did that, and I kind of learned, and I just always wanted to get good at it. And then I went and worked for another company that did a little bit more pipe welding, and they did some like steam stuff and some low pressure gas. And like the shop that I went to work for after that was a little bit more centered around welding. So I was like, I really want to do more of this. So I went to work for a company that did more welding. And then I was doing one job for that company, and we were working on a gate transfer station for one of the gas companies in New England. And we were
Okay.
doing some of the boiler piping. And to even do the boiler piping on this job, we had to go and take the American Petroleum Institute test just to weld that pipe. So we had to be held to the same standard as the guys that were doing the high pressure gas transmission lines. So I had to kind of cut my teeth and take this big welding test that I was not ready for at all, and I found God on that test a little bit. But something about it I just really enjoyed, I guess, and I was like, I think I want to do this more. So I I ended up going to work for that company that uh, we were a sub for this company, and I actually went to work for that company, and now I weld for the gas company a lot more. And
Wow.
I kind of was like, you know what? It's like this thing kind of, I just remember being on that job site and seeing these guys that, they had these big trucks, and they were all really good at it. And I was like, man, these guys are really good welders. And I'm like, I just want to be that good. You know what I mean? And I guess it's just the thing I really like about it is it's almost like an art form. And it's almost like you can think you're good, but you'll see this other guy, and you're like, oh my God, like I'm not even, do I even know how to weld? You know what I mean? It's one of those things that you're always trying to get better at, I guess. And that's one thing I really enjoy about it is it is a you have to like it. You have to love it to an extent. But it is I'd say it's rewarding. It can be very stressful too, when you're worried about passing x-rays, and you got people looking at your welds and critiquing them and examining them and stuff. It's not, it's definitely a little bit of a different world, but I do find it very rewarding. And it definitely, to do that kind of work, you have to strive to be a better welder. And I guess that's a big reason I got into it, was I was like, you have to continue to get good if you want to stay in it. So I do enjoy
That's
it.
awesome.
But yeah, it's I guess if that answers your question, it just depends on what it is you're welding and what's going through it that would determine how strict or how diverse the skill set would need to be.
That's so cool, man. I mean, I knew you'd be good at anything you attempted because that's just like who you are. You have a
Appreciate
knack for, no, you do. You have a knack for electromechanical stuff in general. I saw that sitting 2 feet from you in the striker for so long. like
I
like you
guess
just had
so.
a knack. Like you, I don't know if it was like a curiosity or like you had to know how all the systems interacted with each other.
Yeah.
And I was telling my wife, I think that's why like they paired us together because I had no idea what I was doing in a striker. I was
Yeah.
like, I don't know how to work the radios. I don't know how to work the RWS. I don't know how to work the pneumatic system, the battery bank. And you just knew all these systems. And I think I underappreciated it until years later. Now that I'm talking about it with you, is like when I saw you like operate this multi-million-dollar piece of equipment that had all these like complex electrical systems and the BFT, like all this stuff, I was like, okay, this guy. When I found out you were going to back to New Hampshire or back to New England in general
Yep.
and going to get involved in trades, I was like, okay, this guy's going to be good at anything he does. Like you're
Oh,
just
I
that kind of
appreciate it.
person that.
Yeah.
No, I mean it because like if you'd stayed in the army, you would have been successful too. But I knew like you had a specific mission in mind that started with HVAC, and then when you mentioned highly regulated and there's x-rays involved, I was like, okay, I know that from being in aviation that means it's very expensive. Anytime you're
Yeah.
going to bring an x-ray machine out, like that's going to be that means there's because they would bring x-rays into our hangar if we were doing an inspection on an airplane that was getting pretty old, and they would do inspections on sections of the fuselage, and it was extremely expensive to do that. It was a
Yeah.
specialized piece of equipment that we didn't have on site, and because the risk was so high, like you're mentioning, like if you have a high pressure gas line or steam line, that's a no fail scenario.
Yeah. They X-ray the gas a lot more than the steam. You'd be
Of
surprised that
course, of course.
some of the steam in New Hampshire isn't even regulated. But to be honest with you, steam is a little scarier than gas, in my opinion.
I would think so.
Steam will kill you. Steam will cut you in
Yeah,
half. Not that gas won't, but it's. I think the gas companies have a certain criteria that they want people to meet, and they X-ray every single weld typically to look for quality, and they don't want something that could fail. So that is a big reason they do it.
totally. Yeah, but gas is not heated to 200 and whatever degrees Fahrenheit.
Yeah, steam, but you'd be surprised. I mean, like I said, I've done a lot of work at the some of the colleges in New Hampshire and Mass on steam, and it's not half as regulated as gas.
Makes
Some
sense. Yeah.
some colleges mandate that if it's a pipe is going to be directly buried in the ground, it will need to be X-rayed because they've had so many issues with you know pipes breaking or welds not being right or anything like that over the years. So some places mandate that if it's going to be direct bury, it's going to be X-rayed. But typically that's on a case by case basis with the university. Whereas the gas companies typically across the board, if it's a weld for them, it's getting X-rayed typically.
Just as a resource for other veterans that might be transitioning or might be having a hard time figuring out what their next mission is after they get out of the Army or the
Mm.
Navy, the Marine Corps, what resources did you use to connect the GI Bill that you earned to like kind of a highly competitive, well, a highly skilled trade like what you're doing now? What resources can we recommend to other veterans?
Um, I use the VA's website quite a bit.
Okay.
There was some good resources there. Some of these schools that you might go to have like a VA liaison that can help you with using your GI benefits. Um, the classes I took were like a night program, so it wasn't. I mainly had to call the VA and figure out what forms to fill out. The VA can be a pain in the ass, but as everybody knows, but
Yes.
I got through it. Some of these colleges and universities have an actual liaison that's job is to work with veterans to get their benefits. I could tell you for a fact the trades really do like hiring veterans. There's a lot of incentives. Like in New England, the unions are really big, and I know they enjoy. They have a lot of like programs like helmets to hard hats to hire vets, and they're real big into trying to get veterans in the union and in the trades in general. I mean, there's just not enough people coming in as it is
There's
to
not.
anything. I mean, I got my plumbing license in Mass too, and I can tell you, even I do a little bit of mechanical stuff, and I'm working towards my pipe fitter's license in Massachusetts right now. So just all those trades in general, even besides welding, but any of the pipe trades or trades, electrical, any of that, there's just not enough people, and they really need people to come in. So I mean, if you're getting out and you're thinking about going to a trade, I mean, you can make a lot of money as far as everybody thinks you got to go to college and go work in an office. I mean, you can do just as well in the trades.
I
I have
couldn't
some
agree
friends
more.
that I went to school with that I took plumbing with, and they own their own companies now because they hit the ground running right after school, and they went right to work. They started their own businesses, and now they kill it. I see some of the stuff they do on Instagram. They do these huge high high end bathroom installs and these big expensive houses, and they do really well. So there's just not enough people coming into the trades anymore. So I would
Yeah,
definitely encourage anybody that's looking for work to consider an apprentice program or something like that.
yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, the local tradesmen I know in my area make a killing because of exactly what you said. It's not only a shortage of people coming into the trades, but there's a shortage of people like Chris MacNeil who like actually care and are actively trying to improve their skill sets. That's even more rare. Like there's a lot of people kind of phone it in. Unfortunately, that's kind of one of the problems with some of the things that's going on with our society. I'm speaking just for myself. That's what I'm seeing. And oh my gosh, That's one thing I'm gonna encourage my kids to consider. I'm like, dude, think about putting off college. Maybe you can always do that later on if you want to go to college. It's not that hard. No offense to people that graduated, but like look at a skilled trade that's actually in demand that would get you out of a cubicle and on the road working with cool technology, cool tools, um, and actually something that's going to be in demand and something you can start earning a living to support a family a lot quicker, in my opinion, and honestly a lot better. I read this statistic the other day. I don't know if you can speak to this at all. I've seen this, but the statistic I read on the news the other day was that half of college graduates are working like high school level jobs, like jobs
Yeah,
that don't really require a college degree. They just maybe their major isn't in high demand.
yeah. I mean, I could see that being true. I
Me
feel
too.
like it's a lot of people get sold on college, and then it's maybe not as applicable to what they want to do when they graduate.
I think you're right. No,
Yep.
I think you're spot on. I mean, I love hearing about your career journey. I mean, obviously, I follow you on social media and stuff, so like I see like little snippets of it, but I've never had like an intentional discussion with you about how you've really honed in your skill set to be like super valuable in your specific industry. And I think it's cool what you highlighted too with your friends that run their own business, because I live down the street from a master plumber who's been in his own business for 40 years. He started his own business when he was 30, and he's been doing plumbing for 40 years. Now he's
Right.
been running his own business for probably 32, and he's got like almost 10,000 clients in the area. He's working 6 days a week trying to find people to help him, and I mean his business is absolutely killing it because he's
Oh
built a
yeah.
reputation. Yeah.
People always need a plumber, and that's one thing. I mean, I remember when I was because like I said, I am a by rights a plumber by trade too. I hold the license in Mass, and
I was gonna ask you that too. Yeah.
I do. I've done more mechanical and HVAC work than plumbing. I tend to like that stuff more. I like the bigger stuff, like the pipe fitting side. But I did go to school. I did go to a trade school for high school for plumbing. I do some plumbing around the house.
Yeah.
I do hold a master plumber's license in Massachusetts.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I got my
That's a big deal. That's a big deal, dude.
it is, yeah. I mean, like I said, honestly, the biggest reason I got it was one of my best friends owns his own business, and we both got our journeyman licenses together. And he really needed his masters because he to have apprentices work for you, you need to be a master. So if you were just a journeyman, you can only work by yourself. So you could own a business, but you'd have to be a sole proprietor. So to have people work for you, you actually have to be a master. To teach, you have to be a master too. So my friend kind of, I got my journeymans, and I was gonna be like, well, I don't, unless I start a business, I don't really need it. But he was like, come on, man, I need it. I don't want to go to school alone. Let's just do it. So he and I kind of did it together, and we studied together, and we actually sat next to each other the day we took the test. You know, but that's a big reason I got it. It is. I guess it's a big deal if you own a business. It's mainly just more schooling, and I feel like the test was the same test I took for journeyman. So it is. I had some incentive from him to do it because he didn't want to do it alone. I didn't want to leave him by himself. So we did it together, I guess, kind of. But I guess it's something good to have. If I ever decide I just want to teach, I always have that to fall back on.
Oh yeah, that's exactly what my neighbor said. He said that as his body ages, he's in really good shape. He's in
Yeah,
phenomenal shape. He's like one of those fitness freaks
yeah,
who's like got a six pack at age 60, which is kind of cool in itself. But he said, yeah, once he's ready to hang up the full time role in his business, he's thought about being a teacher, and and really lowering the ladder down for the next generation of skilled tradesmen that want to learn from someone who's got just an unbelievable vast set of experiences both in commercial and residential plumbing.
yep, yeah. I mean, I guess people always kind of have a preconceived notion of a plumber being this fat guy that comes into your house with his unclogs your toilet. I mean, people always used to bust my balls in the army when I was saying I was going to get out and be a plumber. They'd be like, "Oh, so you're just going to unclog toilets for the rest of your life?" I'm like, "Well, now if I have to come unclog your toilet at 2 in the morning, you're probably buying my groceries for the next week." So there's definitely the plumbing trade itself is a lot more diverse than people think. It's not just fixing
Totally.
faucets, and it could be anything from fixing a faucet to running a 12-inch gas line through a skyscraper. It could be anything from putting in a kitchen sink to doing the water lines and the drainage in a 5-story building. It's pretty. I guess it's a trade with a lot of different aspects to it that kind of the sky's the limit with it. And in Massachusetts, if you're a plumber, you're also licensed to work on gas, so you have to go to school for the whole the gas fitter side of everything too. So that's also something in the curriculum that plumbers do that I guess not everybody would know.
The skill set you've built are like so relevant. I can't even overstate it. I'm reading this book about really the life of Elon Musk. It's the Walter Isaacson biography. He's done biographies on dozens of famous people like Steve Jobs. I think he did one on some famous people that are past Americans, but this is one of his relatively newer books with Elon Musk. And I mean, there's skilled pipe welders that have to work on the spacecraft and the ground
Yeah,
support equipment that are either supercooling fuels or working on high pressure gas lines for the different fuels that are running in the Falcon spacecraft. And this is, I mean, your skill set is only going to be more relevant in the future,
right. Yep.
which
And
is
I think
crazy. I'm
that's the thing is a lot of these older guys are dying off, and they're not. There's not as many people to replace them. So that's a big issue people run into. Welders, plumbers, pipe fitters, electricians, anybody. I think the average age of a plumber in Massachusetts right now is like 50.
oh, that's no
Yeah,
good.
and
Not good for yeah.
there's just not enough people going into the trade. Same with welders. I mean, you still see a lot of these old guys out welding, but eventually they're going to die off or not be able to do it anymore, and there's going to need to be people to replace them. So there's definitely a high demand
Yeah,
for
no,
anybody in the trades.
there's no surprise there. I'm certainly going to encourage my kids and anybody in my family who's, especially people that are kind of unsure of what they want to do, and then they just kind of default to a liberal arts degree in a really
Yep.
expensive state school. Like I have friends and family that are like 150 grand in debt, and honestly, like they're gonna have to work their butt off to get out of that. They're gonna have to work really hard to get out of that hole.
Right.
And they're not doctors or lawyers. These are people that you know what I mean. I don't mean
Right.
to be disparaging, but
No,
like
no, it is true though. It is kind of a people kind of fall into that.
so yeah, your skill set's super relevant. And the first two or three launches that SpaceX engaged in, the critical failures were all due to fuel leaks.
Wow.
So bad welds, fittings that got corroded by some of the salt water because they tend to, launch by the ocean. They had a launch pad in California. They had one in this like atoll that was like a few hours west of Hawaii. In the Marshall Islands, it used to be a nuclear test facility, so the salt water is terrible on aluminum
Yeah.
parts, as you probably know.
Yep.
Yeah, but yeah, I think it's cool what you're doing. I think rolling up in a big diesel powered truck with like all this expensive, unique, purpose built equipment. That sounds like pretty cool to me, and it's like reminiscent of what you and I used to do in a striker.
Yeah, I guess you could I guess in a roundabout way it is.
Yeah. You got to drive the truck though. I'm assuming.
Yeah, this thing will get stuck a lot easier than a striker.
It's like the striker was just a ridiculous
it's a
vehicle.
F550, but it's only 2-wheel drive.
Oh no!
Oh
I guess they
yeah.
probably don't make them in 4-wheel drive.
Oh no, they make these. I think they specifically go out of their way to get these in 2-wheel drive. I mean, 4-wheel drive's a lot more
Oh,
expensive. You
that makes
know,
sense. Okay,
in
that
the
makes
in the
sense. So it's a
winter
cost thing.
it can be a little dicey in the winter because
Yeah, I mean the weight probably
the
helps you.
welder in the back is nice, but it's like right behind the cab, so the back end will kind of go like this in the snow. I'm
That's
not the
so
best
cool.
driver either. I drive like an old Asian lady, so I'm really not a good driver.
I
I'll
never
own
saw
it.
you
You know
drive.
what I mean? I've gone off the road a few times.
You're very honest. You're very
Oh yeah,
truthful. But
I gotta be. Like I said, my neighbor had to pull me out with his plow truck last winter. I was coming home and I went right off the road, and he had to pull me out from the back.
it sounds like you've built a great community up there. Well, you
Oh
already
yeah,
had an existing community because you're from that area, but like
yep,
I feel like your stories have communicated to me that you've built like an incredible, like deep rooted community up there.
definitely. Yeah, like I said, I reconnected with a lot of my friends from high school, and it's that club I'm a member at. A lot of those guys are members too, so it's almost like a. I guess you could look at it as like a tribe because it's a group of guys that like hunting and fishing, and everybody kind of gets together and they all have, I probably wouldn't have got as much into ice fishing as I am now without being a member there because I met all these guys that love to ice fish and I go with them, or duck hunting. I wouldn't have met some of the guys that are such avid waterfowl hunters. I probably never would have done it. So it's nice to feel like you belong to something. I guess maybe that's one thing with the military is it's the camaraderie. You really do miss that. And I mean, it's a little different when you even get out and work in the civilian world, and I've worked with some really good people too, but it's a different kind of, coworkers are a little different than the guys you serve with sometimes. It's not, I guess maybe because it's not a lifestyle. It's a 9 to 5. You go home at the end of the day, you have your family and your friends. And I've made a lot of good friends through my construction trades and stuff, and I like everybody I work with. Definitely, I'd say it's a little different though, as far as I guess the adjustment coming out of the service and then going into the civilian world. You might feel that it's, you miss some of that camaraderie. That's why I think a lot of guys maybe, and this is just guessing, that a lot of guys get out and go into law enforcement or firefighter and EMTs, stuff like that, is they feel kind of a sense of that camaraderie. And I've spoken to several of the guys that we served with that became first responders or cops, and they say that that's the biggest thing they love about it is at the end of the day they go back to the station or whatever, and it's almost like how it was, where we were, because just that sense of camaraderie, I guess, is a big thing that
Yeah.
people I think kind of long for when they get out.
Oh, I know I did, man. It took me a long time to find a community that I could really feel like a belonging, a sense of belonging, and I think that's important for the human psyche, and it's really kind of critical to having a well-rounded, full scope view of your mental health. You have to have that human connection to keep you grounded. At least I do. So,
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, and that's
but
I would say that, I mean, humans are tribal creatures anyway, so it's
we
definitely
are.
definitely feels good to belong.
Yeah, it does. I could talk to you for hours, as you know, but I like to reserve the last few minutes
Oh
for the
yeah.
guests to ask any questions that you want. I mean, is there anything you want to talk about or put out in the world, or is there any questions you want to ask me? I like to reserve the end of the interview to really leave it to you.
Um no, I mean, how about you? What have you done since you got out? Enough
I've
about
went,
me.
dude, you're so funny. So, I kind of interviewed for a wide range of jobs when I was getting out, mostly sales focused.
Mhm.
Anything from selling like medical devices or equipment to selling what else? Selling aircraft. So I started out selling aircraft, just kind of as an entry level sales role, generating leads uh, for an aircraft company. That was really fun. I got my
Oh
pilot's
wow.
license through them, and then I worked for a really cool engineering firm after that, out in Colorado for about a year and a half, and then now I do DoD contracting, which is amazing. So a lot of the
Oh,
equipment
wow.
that you and I use, like the 240, and the 249. My company manufactures it, so
Are you supposed to
that
talk about that?
I can
I'm
talk
just
about the
kidding.
stuff. Yeah, that stuff I
I could
can.
tell
But
you, but I have to kill you.
yeah. Some of the new stuff I can't talk about because
Yeah, I
it's
was gonna say.
yeah, some of the new technologies are not. I could tell you off air, but yeah. So that gave me a kind of a unique connection to the military. Like going down to Columbus, Georgia on Friday was really cool, and reconnecting with like some of the guys that we served with,
Oh,
and
nice.
then some new guys that are coming up through the ranks. Like one of the sergeant majors brought his son, and I was just trying to encourage him. He wants to join the military, be an 11 Bravo, like you were, and I was trying to encourage him and tell him like, wow, I'm so grateful that you have a willingness to sign up and be a service member at all. I don't care what your MOS is, but then B, like the fact that he's gravitating towards an infantry role is like, man, that's that's really meaningful to me in a way because I'm super biased towards infantrymen. If you couldn't tell,
Oh yeah,
it's like it's a shared experience. I don't know how else to say it.
I would agree.
Yeah, it's hard to describe to people that haven't lived it.
Yep. No, it's definitely a trip.
But yeah, I'm so grateful for you, man, and thanks for
Likewise.
staying in touch with me through
Oh
social
yeah.
media
I
and
I I I I wish I talked to more people. I mean, I still keep in
me too.
contact with a good select group of the guys. Even some of the guys that are still in, I talk to. I would tell anybody I'd love to hear from them, and I would you'd be more than welcome to reach out.
Same. I feel the same way. It's so easy to reconnect with you guys, especially the folks in our platoon, in that little cop Pan Calais and
Oh
Myanmar and
yeah.
Afghanistan by the Argonaut River. I'm like, oh my god, like that what a weird experience that was.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it was definitely an interesting experience. Um, I mean, I don't know. I guess Afghanistan's almost like the Vietnam of our generation, if you think about it. Especially the way the withdrawal went. I hate to
Yeah,
say it, but I mean,
yeah.
again, I don't,
Say
I
it.
don't, I don't want to sound like a pompous ass.
Say it.
When I was over there, I always kind of thought about that. Like I was like, you know what? I remember watching the History Channel and seeing the fall of Saigon and like the way they were pushing the helicopters off of the aircraft carriers and stuff. And I was like, man, I just had this gut feeling that this is going to be the same way for some reason. I hated to think it, but maybe it was just me fantasizing that way, but it's just the way my mind works. But I always had that feeling, unfortunately.
I would say you always had, from my perspective, spending countless hours and 48 hours in a metal box with you. You always had pretty good intuition. I think you were good at reading situations and people, and you had a kind of a pulse on the geopolitical aspect of it too. I think you're a pretty smart dude. You're a really smart dude.
Thank you.
So yeah, that doesn't surprise me that you had that intuition. And
I
yeah,
guess it
it
was
was
just from the
yeah,
whole thing. I mean, even when we left, I mean, I don't know, they didn't really seem like they wanted to be there. They were. We always joked that the day we left, they left behind us. you know, I mean, I guess maybe things like that kind of made me feel that sense of having that image of the Huey helicopter getting pushed off the aircraft carrier. But I don't know, just something kind of a hunch, I guess. I hate to say that, because it was. I like to think we did something over there.
yeah. We made a positive impact for the people that really longed for a secure, way of life that, a lot of people yearn for. Think about raising your kid anywhere on the planet. And, we're fortunate that we get to raise our kids in like the most prosperous nation that's ever been thought of. And
Right.
you're not really worried about being attacked at night, like in your house. Like I feel pretty safe where I live. And so that gives me a sense of gratitude that I think you would obviously understand that, but I think a lot of people that have not lived in violent third world countries probably can't understand
Right.
because they don't know, they have nothing to compare it to. If you grew up in a suburban neighborhood in the U.S. And that's all you've known, what do you have to compare it to? That's just what you know.
Right. Yeah. No, that's true. Definitely can't take it for granted.
I don't. Yeah, I
Nope.
don't.
Definitely
I'm
not.
really grateful, man. I'm grateful for you too, but yeah, I'm so glad we reconnected over the years. And dude, thank you for coming on, man.
Oh no, I had a blast.
Me too.
Definitely
It was fun.
a lot of fun.
Yeah, and feel free to stay on. I'm gonna end the recording, but we can chat for a minute after.
Yeah,
you get
that's
off.
fine. Yeah, definitely.